Digital accessibility is no longer a discretionary design choice. To sell software to enterprise or government sectors, it's a strict, non-negotiable legal gatekeeper. In the United States, this begins with Section 508 of the Rehabilitation Act. By law, federal agencies are prohibited from purchasing technology unusable by individuals with disabilities. That mandate recently expanded across state and local governments through the Department of Justice's updated ruling on ADA Title II. Internationally, the European Accessibility Act, utilizing standard EN 301549, pushes these requirements deep into the private sector, regulating e-commerce, banking, and digital services. While jurisdictionally distinct, Section 508, ADA Title II, and European regulations converge on a single baseline, WCAG 2.1 Level AA. To access these markets, your software must pass through this specific standard, proven via a standardized reporting framework. Failing to execute this documentation removes your product from consideration before the bidding process even begins. Bridging the gap between these legal mandates and software engineering requires a specific translation layer, the VPAT process. The Voluntary Product Accessibility Template, or VPAT, is maintained by the Information Technology Industry Council. It is merely a blank, standardized framework, an empty shell. Populate that template with accessibility testing data, and it becomes an Accessibility Conformance Report, or ACR. This is the legally binding document submitted to buyers. A widespread semantic error in the software industry is claiming a vendor is VPAT certified. There is no certification body, and there is no pass or fail grading system. Instead, vendors author and submit an ACR to provide evidence of their compliance posture and survive rigorous procurement screening. The VPAT is just the empty envelope. The ACR is the legal evidence contained inside.
Filling out an ACR requires data, leading many development teams into the automation fallacy, assuming a quick automated web scan generates a compliant report. This graph illustrates automated accessibility testing. Scanners detect only 30 to 40% of WCAG violations. That 30% represents binary errors, like missing alt text or color contrast failures. The remaining 70% requires contextual judgment, evaluating complex keyboard navigation, screen readers, or cognitive usability. Because of this blind spot, federal procurement officers expect vendors to evaluate their software using the audit triad. First, the automated scan, establishing a baseline of syntax compliance. Second, manual technical inspection. Specialists navigate the code line by line. Third, functional user testing, using real assistive technologies. Relying exclusively on automated scans generates a demonstrably false ACR. Submitting it exposes your organization to immediate bid rejection and long-term legal liability. Once the audit triad yields its raw data, that information must be mapped into the specific architecture of the VPAT table. Looking at the layout of the VPAT 2.5 WCAG edition, the core table features three non-negotiable columns: criteria, conformance level, and remarks and explanations. The criteria column lists the exact WCAG success criteria your buyer requires you to meet. The conformance level column requires selecting from 4 rigid terms defined by the ITI. Supports means the functionality completely meets the criterion. Partially supports indicates a specific portion fails.
Does not support means the majority fails. Not applicable means the criterion is irrelevant. There is one critical trap to avoid: the term not evaluated. Legally, this can only be applied to optional level AAA criteria. It can never be used for mandatory level AA criteria. Modifying these precise ITI terms or trying to soften them with creative language will result in immediate rejection by a compliance officer. The ultimate reality of accessibility procurement is this: contracting officers do not audit your codebase, they audit your remarks column. Submitting an ACR with a blank remarks column is an automatic disqualifier. It indicates the vendor either didn't do the work or doesn't understand the requirement. Conversely, an ACR claiming total supports across every single row without providing detailed justification is viewed by evaluators with extreme suspicion. In complex software, perfect compliance is rare, making unverified perfection look like a fabricated report. Counterintuitively, deploying the partially supports designation is your strongest tool for building trust, provided you follow it up with rigorous documentation. A valid remark must explain the exact technical barrier present in the software, such as documenting a keyboard focus trap within a specific modal window. It must also specify exactly which users are affected, noting, for instance, that screen reader operators cannot exit a navigation menu. Finally, the remark must include a concrete guideline for a patch, or provide a functional workaround for the user in the interim. Highly specific remarks prove your organization possesses a mature, good faith compliance operation. Blank or uniformly flawless remarks signal deceit or incompetence. Put yourself at the desk of a government procurement officer. Their job is aggressive vetting. Agencies do not take accessibility claims at face value. They grade submitted ACRs against rigid, standardized rubrics designed specifically to filter out low-effort vendors. The evaluation begins with metadata. Reviewers immediately check the date of your last test and scrutinize the exact evaluation methods you listed. They look for explicit proof of manual testing methodologies. If your report doesn't mention verifying browser zoom at 400% or list the specific versions of screen reading software utilized, it will be flagged. In federal procurement, transparency wins contracts. Buyers overwhelmingly prefer to purchase a flawed product accompanied by an honest remediation roadmap, rather than a product making false claims of perfection. Passing an ACR review is not a test of flawless code. It is a test of a vendor's operational maturity and risk management. Achieving that maturity requires understanding that digital accessibility does not end when an ACR is exported to a PDF. Software is dynamic. As developers push new features and alter the codebase, a static ACR immediately begins to degrade in accuracy. Maintaining compliance means establishing continuous monitoring and integrating accessibility checks directly into your deployment pipelines. Failing to update your documentation to reflect software changes can jeopardize active federal contracts and trigger costly audits down the line. A rigorously maintained, frequently updated Accessibility Conformance Report is the ultimate proof that a vendor is a reliable, legally sound partner for the public and enterprise sectors.